Hello, everybody. Good day, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Ask Abhijit show. I hope you're all doing great. Today, we are doing episode 241. And today, we're going to discuss my least favorite topic. We're going to dedicate most of this Ask Abhijit session to the temporary nation by public demand, because all the questions have been about Pakistan and associated topics. So we're going to discuss that. But before we do that, before I take the questions that I've chosen from the comments, I'm going to see who all is there on the live stream. I can see Crazy Brain, Akshit, Ravi Prasad, Chat DSP, Abhijit, Supreme Lord, Amrit Singh, connoisseur of the game, Anti-Motion Clips, Bhuvan Bham, Mr. Jam, Himanshu Sharma, Vedang Mishra, Akash B.A., Surendra Gupta, Random Skull, hello, Martian, Nisarga Patel, Shubham, Torres, Oscar Madison, Manu Krishna, Chirag Avasti, Tane Chandra, Baba Abhijit Chavda, Dhruv, Hardik Kumar, Geopolitical Dubey from Indore, Anant Chandak, the Medico, Jasneet Singh, Harsh Kapoor, MK, Nobi-san, Rashmi Rathore, Jai Hind, Siddharth, Illuminati Creek, good to see you. Mr. 88ers, Komal, Action, Ipsha, Tushar Nagar, Aditya Raj Tiwari, Feminist Slayer, hello. GK Der Kaiser, Gamer Babu, Aromal Biju, Vinit Sancheti, Akash Moria, Akshit, Vinit Singal, Kapalin, Pushkar Rai, Vidhi Manyar, 54 Topo Ka Salute, Karan Nalawa, Jai Shri Ram, Akash BA, Anant Chandak, Shiva Rai, Dheeraj Kamath, Pranay Paul from Kolkata, Nutan Roshan, Anuj, Khyadi the Chad, Xenomorphosis, Akshay Narwal, Sagar Gare, Radhika Durvas, Sumana Ghosh, and so many other people, Maklavin, Tanay Chandra, Chakrabarti, Gautami, Gamer Babu, Nachiket, Jayaraman, and everybody else, Gargi Mishra, Amisha Mishra, Bravo Williams. Thank you all for being on the live stream. All right, let's take some questions. Where do we begin? I think, so we're gonna discuss our neighbor today and the things they do. So what are the things they do? Let's see. All right, what's question number one? It's by Krish. A terrific or terrible event happened in Pahalagam, deliberately killing men and Hindus. Was it for drama? Modi had to shortcut his Saudi visit and return to India. Visas to Pakistanis have been cancelled. People have been called back from Pakistan. Indus and Jhelum water pacts have been cancelled. Military training and so on. PM Modi spoke in English for a minute straight during his speech in Bihar, and he said that we're going to chase them to the ends of the world, meaning that borders don't matter. Okay, Pakistan is getting geared up, all during JD Vance's India visit. Isn't this a slap at India's face that such an event happened during such a high-profile visit? Are we gearing up for a war or a surgical strike? US and China in Cold War, Pakistan's army stretched along Iran, Afghanistan, internal issues in Balochistan. Isn't this the best opportunity to take back POK? Like 75 different questions in one comment. Thank you so much for being a fan. I really appreciate that. So, this terrorist attack, this massacre happened in Pahalagam just earlier this week. And it's a heinous, ghastly, barbaric, monstrous incident that no civilized society can tolerate. Right? And Pakistan have shown what they're made of. So yes, this happened. And then Mr. Modi, who was on a visit to Saudi Arabia, had to return mid-trip. Other cabinet ministers, wherever they were in the world, whatever trips they had to return. This happened during the first visit of Vice President of the US, JD Vance, to India. So is it a coincidence that it happened during his visit? And there's this entire Cold War going on, the trade and tariff war between the US and China, and so much more. So much to unpack in this one incident, this absolutely horrific, unacceptable, barbaric, inhuman massacre of innocent Indians, innocent Hindus, right? So is it a coincidence that this happened during JD Vance's visit? Pakistan has this they have this habit, they have this pattern that they've exhibited of linking incidents with various events, incident linking. This happened during a long time ago, during Prime Minister Vajpayee's visit to Lahore. The Kargil thing happened at the time, and other things. The parliament attack happened during something something equally important, and so on. The Pakistanis always link these things. So why are they doing this? So First of all, it's a signal. It's a signal to the US that, we matter. The US is investing more and more capital, political capital, other capital, in its relationship with India. The relationship, like I have said a few months ago, is gaining momentum. It's going from strength to strength. The India-US relationship. It is quite possible that the Trump tenure is going to see the pinnacle of India-US ties. It's quite possible. Okay, so the US is investing so much capital of various kinds in India, and the Pakistanis have chosen to remind the US that, you can invest whatever you want in India, but you will need us to manage the Kashmir thing. We can always mess Kashmir up. It's a reminder to the US. It's a reminder that, we are the managers of this particular corner. We can always mess it up, and you gotta pay attention to us, which means you gotta pay your dues, possibly more bribes, more whatever. So it's a reminder to the US, and it raises Pakistan's importance in the eyes of the world. First of all, they can claim plausible deniability. Everybody is going to point fingers at them, and then if India does something, then they can claim victimhood. It's a very old, tried and true tactic, isn't it? So there is that. That's another thing that the Pakistanis have most likely wanted to do, to bring the eyes of the world on this thing. So this is and the other thing they want to do is to internationalize the Kashmir matter. There is no Kashmir issue. There is no Kashmir issue in the world. The issue that we have in the world is a Pakistan issue. The issue is Pakistan. The issue is not Kashmir. But Pakistan wants to keep on harping about the Kashmir issue, and they want to internationalize this matter by forcing Kashmir back onto the front page headlines in the world, and forcing Kashmir onto the front page of Donald Trump's daily intelligence briefing that he gets. Top secret intelligence briefing that he gets, a dossier he gets every morning. Kashmir is going to figure on that now. So they want to dilute India's claim that the dispute is that this matter is settled. India is saying that the Kashmir is a settled matter. There's no dispute, and they want to raise this. So that's the thing. Now the Indus Indus Waters Treaty has been abrogated or whatever, put into abeyance, whatever whatever technical term you want to use about that. But that's what's happened, right? Now the real question is, does any evidence point to a third power, right? Is it only Pakistan? Is there somebody behind Pakistan? What's the question? Are we gearing up for a war or a surgical strike? US, China, Balochistan? Yeah, all of this is interconnected. We don't quite have any evidence that any other power may be involved in this matter. But yeah, what are the other questions? PM Modi has said that we're going to chase them to the ends of the world. Yeah, good. All of the world's leaders, major leaders, have unequivocally voiced their support to India. The US has done that. President Trump of the US did that. Various other world leaders did that. Even the foreign minister of Iran did that. Interesting. The Taliban has voiced support, has expressed support towards India. The director of the national intelligence of the US, Ms. Gabbard, even said that Hindus were targeted. She herself is a Hindu, which helps, and so on. Yes, so this is kind of an inflection point. Things will never be the same for Pakistan again. I can assure you of that. Something has changed in the world order that Pakistan doesn't seem to have realized. And whether they have walked wittingly or unwittingly into this thing, things are never going to be the same for Pakistan. Their star is now on the decline. Now, what happens going forward is going to remain in the hands of Prime Minister Modi. Mr. Modi gets to decide what happens next as the leader of the nation of India. And I am not privy to what could happen. All the cards are on the table. We could there are various measures that we have at our disposal. We obviously have the Indus waters leverage now. The three rivers that were given away to Pakistan, we can start leveraging the water there in a variety of ways. We can strangulate Pakistan slowly, drop by drop. We can do that. And there's the option of surgical strikes. There's the option of a pulse pause war, a brief, short, sharp war. There's many options that we have. Um, yeah. So this is what's happened. What are the other questions you've asked over here? We're going to take lots of questions about this. Is this a slap at India's face? It's a stupid thing to do. It doesn't. I know 26 people died. These are, each death is a tragedy in its own. It's a tragedy for each family and every loved one who these dead people leave behind. It's a horrific tragedy. Yes, so that stands indeed. But overall, as a nation, we are 1.4 billion people. Does this hurt us? They maybe they wish to hurt us in certain ways. Maybe they want to portray India as a nation that is not a safe destination for investment and so on, but it doesn't really work that way. I think it's a disastrously stupid move by Pakistan, and it's gonna haunt them for the rest of their existence, however long or short it may be. Because Pakistan is an artificial temporary nation, and the temporary status just got heightened now. It's gone up several notches, for sure. Pranay Paul always asks great questions. In the current volatile geopolitical backdrop, is there any doubt left that the Pakistan army orchestrated this attack? Why strike now, right when the US Vice President is visiting India? Coincidence or deliberate signaling? Is the objective only to disrupt Kashmir's rise, or could there be the involvement of foreign power with any clear indicators? Given the Pakistan Army's deep understanding of the likely repercussions, what could be driving them to risk such escalation? Is this part of a bigger trap to provoke India into rushing into a quick military reaction? And do you believe that such a smooth, coordinated attack could happen without some form of local support? These are very interesting questions. So first of all, let's take the question of whether it's the Pakistan army that orchestrated this attack, or maybe, like they say, it is a homegrown thing or whatever. Look, if you look at the operational fingerprints of what happened, they point in one direction, unmistakably towards Rawalpindi, Pakistan. The Pakistanis will keep on denying it. Okay, some new organization, terror organization, TRF or something, seems to have taken credit for what happened. Look, whatever this organization is, it's not some kind of local autonomous terrorist cell or whatever. It is a disposable alias of LET, Lashkar-e whatever that thing is, right? And Lashkar-e whatever LET is an extension of the ISI. Okay, and these various disposable aliases that these people use, a new organization exists for 3 months here and 3 months there and 6 months here and 6 months there. These are used that's a very old tactic they've been using. In the 1990s, there was something called Harkat ul Ansar or something. Every time they come up with a new name, which is nothing but a disposable alias. It's a disposable mask that the LET wears, and the LET itself is a mask of the ISI. Okay, so it's clear, and the ISI, it uses these disposable masks to launder these terror attacks and claim that they are indigenous. Okay, but we know that there's Indian intelligence, US intelligence, everyone knows that there's clear connections of funding networks that connect the ISI with the LET, with all these various all these organizations. There are various so-called charities in Lahore and whatnot that do the dirty work, the funding, the funneling of money and whatnot, and so on. So there's no question that all the operational fingerprints point in the direction of the ISI. Now, like I said some time ago, what's the objective? They want to internationalize the Kashmir matter. They want to claim that Kashmir is not settled; it is still a dispute, and so on. And no matter what India does by abrogating Article 370, by ending Article 370 and normalizing the situation, it still doesn't matter. Kashmir is still a dispute. They want to internationalize the matter. That's number one. Secondly, they want to send a message to Washington, like I said, that Pakistan matters, and Pakistan is the entity that will manage this region, and no matter how much you invest in India, there's always going to be a liability in Kashmir, and Pakistan is needed to manage it, that sort of thing. um, that's the kind of message they are sending to the world, to the US, and so on. Now the question once again that's being asked is whether there is any external factor. Is there any outside hand in this? Is there a third power, fourth power perhaps involved in this? So look, there's no conclusive evidence that we have that any other power is involved beyond Pakistan. Conclusive evidence doesn't exist. But where does the incentive lie? The incentive structure, it aligns, it doesn't align with the US geopolitical interest. I'll tell you that. Okay. The incentive for what happened here, it aligns very neatly with Beijing's interests. So at the time that this terror attack happened, there was a concurrent, at the same time there was a military exercise that was going on in Pakistan occupied Kashmir with the involvement of Pakistani forces and Chinese forces. Okay, military exercise. And we know that China is facing the US pressure, and India and the US are cooperating in the field of semiconductors and whatnot. And this was recently announced during JD Vance's trip to India, right? So it really helps China if things don't keep going wrong in India. There's terror attacks and whatnot. So the incentive is there, but there is no clear evidence. And let's say there are tensions in the Kashmir region. There's a flare up of violence. Maybe there are surgical strikes. Maybe there is a short, sharp war or whatever. So if that happens, you're going to have a large number of Indian forces pinned to the western front of India, right? If in case that happens, that indirectly eases pressure on the LAC, line of actual control, where you have a huge buildup of armed forces on both sides, India and China. In recent times, past year or so, India and China have been slowly bringing the tension down, the tensions down. But if China feels that India is aligning with the US and there's no point being nice with India, then they could do such things. So if there's a flare up on the western border on India's western border, then it eases the pressure on the LAC with Tibet, the line of actual control with Tibet. And there are connections between China and Pakistan. There is this. They have been constructing fiber links between Pakistan occupied Kashmir and Xinjiang, part of China. So you can see that there are cross connections between the PLA and the ISI. So there are these circumstantial pieces of evidence, but there is no clear, unambiguous evidence that points in a third power's direction. Right now, the question that's also being asked is, why does Pakistan do such things? What is it that drives Pakistan to risk this sort of explanation, to this sort of escalation? Right. So look, there are domestic factors first of all. The Pakistani economy is constantly collapsing. The IMF bailout is not happening. It is under negotiation, and there are civilian protests that happen. There's the Balochistan issue. The army's domestic aura has been eroded, so they need some kind of external factor to get the people to rally around the army again. Right? Makes sense, right? And the Pakistan army, it obviously calculates that their nuclear shield gives them protection against India, and it will also, this nuclear shield and the nuclear matter will also ensure that great powers like the US will immediately step in and mediate and prevent India from taking things beyond a surgical level or a symbolic level, like Balakot, etc. Yeah, and by demonstrating that by demonstrating that they can disrupt tourism and destabilize Kashmir at will, they probably want to get some concessions from India, but they've done the opposite. Indus Waters Treaty is gone, and so on. Now, what Pranay asks is that is this a trap? Is this part of a bigger trap to provoke India into something stupid? Yeah, it could be. It could be. India will have to calibrate and calculate whatever response it takes. Some response will happen. Some response has already happened. We've expelled a significant amount of the number of Pakistani diplomats or military attaches or whatever, and we've brought our people back as well from our embassy there. And the Indus Waters Treaty has been abrogated, whatever, put in abeyance, etc. But there could be more coming up. There could be more coming up. If India doesn't plan things properly and just gets angry and acts in anger, doesn't a ground incursion of Pakistan, or maybe tries to take POK back, then it will give Pakistan grounds to play the victim. And that then they will obviously this will also give China the opportunity to give diplomatic shielding to Pakistan. So Pakistan gets to posture as a besieged victim. So India is going to have to calculate things properly and do it the right way. Now, the last question that Pranay asks is that could this have happened without local support? Yeah. Could this have happened without local support? Pakistan, I don't think I have to show anyone the map in this matter. We all know the map between India and Pakistan, the border region. Pakistan has a long border with India. Most of it is not disputed or held. Indian territory not held by Pakistan, most of it, right? We have a long border in Rajasthan. We've got a long border in Gujarat. Yes. So how come there's no terrorism in Rajasthan or Gujarat? Because there's no local support. People will say there's desert and all that. These people live in deserts. They can deal with deserts. Okay, these are desert people. There's no local support in Rajasthan or Gujarat. Look, what happened in Pahalagam, this massacre, to make it happen, you know what the terrorists needed? They needed advanced reconnaissance of the flow of tourist flows. They needed to have a clear day by day granular understanding of tourist flows. What day, how many tourists come? When did the tourist season start? Where do they come from? Which operators bring tourists to what spots? What if someday the weather is bad? What happens, and so on and so forth. So you need advanced reconnaissance of tourist flows. You need covert safe houses in the area around Pahalgam, and you need the facility of instantaneous exfiltration. Immediately get the terrorists out so that they cannot be captured. So you need granular situational awareness, and this is not possible without what they call OGWs. What's an OGW? It's an overground worker. You see, in this field of terrorism, or whatever you want to call it, there are two kinds of operators. There is overground workers and there is underground workers. Underground workers are the guys who are hidden and they come out only with the AK-47s or whatever. Okay? Who are the overground workers? The overground workers are your local transportation people. They are your hotel people. Hello, sir. Is everything fine today, sir? Do you need something, sir? The hotel folks. So you have people who work in hotels, people who, let's say the hotel networks. You have transport unions. You have your taxi drivers. The tour operator network. All that stuff. This is you. If you are a terrorist and you want to, target tourists who come into Kashmir, you need overground workers in these networks. Okay, so it's a given that this was there. And after the Pahalgam attack happened, our security agencies have already rounded up more than a dozen such facilitators or overground workers who have been playing this role. So there is this infiltration of the overground, of all these networks by the ISI LET combination, and that's how they have been so successful in Kashmir. So Kashmir, after the removal of Article 370, I mean, what has changed in Kashmir after that? Yeah, tourism has started booming again. This is what happens when you go and spend your money in Kashmir. This is what you get in recompense for that. Yeah, you think everything has changed? Things don't change until you change things at a very fundamental level. You have to start with changing the education system and the schooling system and all that, but that the government will not do. Right? Societies change slowly. Just because a few cosmetic changes were done, doesn't mean that whole society will change. They are the same people. To change society, you have to change it at a very fundamental level, which is why I keep harping on about the education system and other things. So that's not happened, and Kashmir, the population of Kashmir is the same, right? So this is what you get by giving them tourism revenue. So look, bottom line, this is an ISI operation, very calibrated ISI operation. It is timed to coincide with the strategic momentum in India-US ties. It is timed to coincide with the visit of JD Vance to India. It is testing. It is a test. It is designed to test India. It is designed to test India's escalation discipline, and so on. And India's response must punish the perpetrators without giving Pakistan the international limelight they want. Understand that. So that's what India has to do. And there are lots of ways of strangulating Pakistan: gray zone strangulation, economic strangulation, water strangulation, so much that India can leverage. India is going to have to do it judiciously, carefully. The international opinion is with India. There's no question about that. So use that judiciously, and let's start the clock ticking on the temporary nation. This is the inflection point. This is no longer the same India that we had in 2019, where they did whatever else. This is a different India, and this time Pakistan must be made to pay. Okay, Pod Planet says the recent Pahalagam attack in Kashmir seems far from random. It can be a calculated move by China executed through Pakistan to destabilize India at a critical time. With the US imposing heavy tariffs on Chinese goods, many global companies have started shifting their supply chains to India, threatening China's economic dominance. To counter this shift, China could be using its close ally Pakistan to create internal unrest in India, especially in sensitive regions like Kashmir. By doing so, China's goal may be to project India as unstable and unsafe for foreign investment, thereby slowing its rising momentum as a global manufacturing hub. This isn't just terrorism, it's economic warfare disguised as a regional conflict. Now, this is a really international interesting point that you raise here. What's the deal? So look, it's clear that, look, China does benefit if things go wrong in Kashmir. China, right now, what's happening is that the world is seeking alternatives to China. You have marquee manufacturers like Apple who are increasingly shifting production to India. I don't care what the media says, it's happening. More and more of the production that was happening in China is now being moved to India. And China needs China. It's great for China if India gets portrayed as an unsafe destination, right? Now, what is it that takes? If you are a foreign manufacturer, and if you're wondering whether you should come to India and manufacture in India, what does it take to convince you? First of all, the business environment should be good. The government should give you good treatment. You should get all the facilities you need. You need to have a good, stable labor force, and so on. All that is there in India. Mostly, it's there in India. The things that keep people away, make them wonder whether they should not come, is if you have constant terrorism and unsafe environment, and if it's very hard to have contracts enforced and things like that. So the manufacturing that Apple is doing is happening in southern India, if I'm not mistaken. And what happens in Kashmir is kind of usually by if you're a foreign investor, you don't connect what's happening in Kashmir to what's happening in the rest of India, because everyone knows that Kashmir is right next to the terror factory. That's Pakistan. and Kashmir has historically been targeted by Pakistan. So if there are terror attacks that's happening in other parts of India, that's a red flag. If it's happening in Kashmir, then the foreign investors don't really get don't see it as a red flag. Okay, now understand this. Uh, so if India is projected as an unsafe destination, it helps China for sure. So there is definitely strategic convergence of interests here, but understand it's not a hierarchical convergence; it's a strategic convergence. It's just the yeah. So it's not hierarchical. Whatever has happened has been probably done by the ISI and the LET and whatnot. Uh, Beijing does benefit from this, but I don't think there is any clear sign that they are involved. They will definitely give their diplomatic backing to Pakistan, their diplomatic shielding to Pakistan. But Beijing, one thing, if you look at their track record, you will understand they do not outsource sectarian terrorism. See, how does Beijing generally like to operate? Beijing is a bully. We know that, right? Beijing is a bully. How do they operate vis-a-vis their neighbors? Except for Russia, all other nations are smaller than them, right? So they are the big bully in the region, except for when it comes to the relationship with Russia. How do they treat their other neighbors? First of all, they indulge in salami slicing away territory. Every single neighboring country, they do this to them. They have been doing this to everyone, and we know it very very well. They've deliberately not demarcated the border. They choose to keep the border issue open, India-Tibet border, so that they can keep salami slicing wherever the opportunity may or may not present itself. Right. So one thing they do is salami slicing. The other thing they do is various other kinds of bullying. Whether it is the South China Sea kind of thing, island building, or whatever. That's the sort of bullying they do. And uh, the one thing they don't do is outsource sectarian terrorism, because that tarnishes their image, and they have been at pains to present a spotless image to the world, diplomatically, internationally, etc. That we have an unimpeachable track record, and our rise is a peaceful rise, and so on. And if they were to indulge in things like these, get involved in Pakistani terrorism against India, it can come back to bite them, because they have a significant investment in Central Asia, even Pakistan. The Belt and Road Initiative, in Pakistan it's called the CPEC, the China Pakistan Economic Corridor, and they have been facing um, attacks along that corridor from Balochistan freedom fighters and others. And if they start funding Pakistani terrorism or getting involved in that directly, then it can come back to bite them very badly. So I don't think China will be directly involved in this. They certainly their interests will certainly be served by what happened, but I think their presence or their participation in this could be limited to giving diplomatic backing and diplomatic shielding to Pakistan once this goes to the UN and other things. Beyond that, I don't think China will directly get involved in this, and there is no evidence of that whatsoever. Okay, this is an important question. Krish and Briganka Sekhar Biswas. Did they just admit it? We have been doing this dirty work for the US and the West for 3 decades. Did Pakistan just admit that they backed terrorism for the US and UK? What happens now? Mariganka says, what are the broader implications of Pakistan's defense minister admitting on live interview with Sky News that Pakistan has been carrying out the dirty work for Western powers like the US and the UK in the Indian subcontinent, particularly in the context of regional stability, sovereignty, balance of power, etc. What he admitted is that Pakistan is a proxy for the West in carrying out terror attack against India. And we have been doing this dirty work for more than 3 decades. That's what he said. Viewers of the Ask Abhijit show will know. I have been saying this for a very long time, that the US funded and financed Pakistani terrorism in India for decades. Right? They started in 1979, essentially. And I was saying this when it was not fashionable to say it. Today, the Pakistani defense minister corroborates what I have been saying. Everyone knew this. Everyone who knows things knew it, but nobody would say it. Well, now the defense minister of Pakistan said it on this live interview. It's there. You can see the clip anytime you want. It will never go away from social media. Right? So he said this. So this is. So why did he say it, first of all, is the question, right? Why did he make this admission? Why did he make the admission that Pakistan has been so look, first of all, we know that since the 1980s, the West has treated Pakistan's support for terrorism as an open secret. Okay, if you know how things work, you will know that it's been an open secret, especially at higher levels. That everyone knew that Pakistan is a proxy for the US and the UK and the West. And in the 19, this all happened because in the Cold War, India was not in the side of the West, or not on the side of the West. India was on the side of the USSR, and that's why India had to be contained, and India had to be put in its place. And one of the ways to do it is by using Pakistan as a terror factory and terrorize India. Starts with Punjab, then in Kashmir, right, and then rest of India also, terror attacks all over the place. So the US funded and financed this. Now, the West ignored this. They publicly ignored this. Privately, they knew it, but they publicly ignored this. As long as Islamabad gave those statements, those platitudes, counter-terror platitudes. Oh, we believe we are against terrorism, and we are doing this Zarbe Azab, or some God knows what operation they had done at some point in time, and so on. All that. So this guy, Khwaja Asif, I think his name is, he said this on camera. We have been doing this dirty work. This takes the mask off this thing, So there's the end. This is the end of deniability. Pakistan can no longer deny. The West can no longer deny what's been happening. Okay, so Pakistan's legitimacy is gone. Pakistan, what they used to claim? They used to claim that they were the leaders of the Islamic world against unjust imperialist designs of the West. Now it turns out that according to their own defense minister, Pakistan has been operating for decades as an imperial subcontractor, as a mercenary for the imperialists. So their standing is gone now. Okay, their standing is gone in the Islamic world, in whatever world they were positioning themselves. And when it comes to the US, when it comes to Washington, when it comes to London, they now have to make a decision. They have to choose between whether they want to they will have to either distance themselves from Pakistan, which will now make Pakistan once again go into the arms of China, or they will have to own up to what they've done and give Pakistan some kind of security or something. So that's kind of where we are. So this guy has slipped up, perhaps deliberately, perhaps not. Maybe there's an election coming up and he wants to, whatever is going wrong in Pakistan, blame it on the West, blame it on the masters. Maybe it's a sign that the West has ditched Pakistan and Pakistan is looking for a new master. Please understand this. Okay, maybe it is a sign of that. I'm telling you from the beginning of this episode, right? Something has changed in the world. You can sense it at a certain level. So something has changed somewhere. And this statement by the Pakistan defense minister perhaps is a very strong indication that something has changed and Pakistan is seeking a new master now. And if you want a new master, you have to disown the past master. So the best way to do it is to say it on live TV, and put all the blame on them for everything that went wrong. So I think now Pakistan-China convergence could happen. And this is going to be difficult for Pakistan. They will have to now rely on Beijing, if that is the case, for aid, for their handouts, because the IMF, the World Bank, things will be difficult for them. So look, it's an open secret. It's always been an open secret for people in the know, not for the common people, but it's always been an open secret for people who understood how things worked in the world. So Pakistan has been exposed. They have confessed that they are a mercenary state. They've been doing this dirty work, and yeah, so that's where we are. Sovereignty. The question, the question Briganka raises is that of sovereignty, stability, etc. Balance of power. It's all fine. Balance of power, it'll change somewhat if the West has decided to ditch Pakistan, which seems to be the case. Then yes, China-Pakistan convergence happens, which means the India-China détente, rapprochement, etc. Where does it go? Is the question. Are we going to see more flare-ups on the LAC now? We have to be, we're going to have to keep these things in mind. But when it comes to sovereignty, Pakistan is a mercenary state. It's a contractor. It's a terrorism contractor, security subcontractor, whatever you want to say. It's not a sovereign state. It's never been a sovereign state. Okay, and the Pakistan army doesn't defend national honor. The Pakistan army works for whoever pays them the most. Okay, so all of that is now completely exposed, and I'm telling you something. This is an inflection point. Whatever the events that happened this week, they represent an inflection point in the history of Pakistan. The clock is now ticking on Pakistan. I don't know how long it will take, whether it is 3 months or 3 years or 15 years, but it's ticking now, and it's a countdown that's begun. Okay, it's not ticking forward; it's ticking backwards. It's a countdown. It's counting down to zero now for Pakistan. Okay, Pranay says, could you explain what exactly the Indus Waters Treaty is and why it's been so crucial to Pakistan's survival all these years? How did previous Indian governments allow a situation where nearly 80% of the river waters were given away to Pakistan, while India was left with only about 20%? Isn't it high time we fix these historic blunders? With India now moving to scrap or fundamentally alter the treaty, what could be the long-term implications for Pakistan's agriculture, economy, internal stability? Do you see this as a far more devastating and permanent tool of pressure compared to short-term military actions? That's a great question. Look, my friends, listen, pay attention. A missile strike hurts, right? A missile strike hurts. It causes pain. It causes damage. That damage happens once. Boom, right? Let's say you send 20 missiles. Let's say you send 100 missiles. It's going to cause a certain quantum of damage and pain. And then time erases that. You squeeze water slowly, gradually, drip by drip, drop by drop. 1%, 2%, 3%, 7%, 10%. That is not visible. There is no damage that's visible. There's no pain that's visible. But it is an incredible squeeze on a nation that depends on the upriver waters. That is a far greater pressure point, leverage point, pain point, whatever you want to call it, than missile strikes and military action. You can bring a nation to its knees by doing this. So now, with that said, what's the Indus Waters Treaty? It is a treaty that was signed sometime in 1960, I believe, under the auspices of the World Bank. And at that time, our Prime Minister was Mr. Nehru, Mr. Jawaharlal Nehru. So we have 6 rivers in the Sapta Sindhu region, which is strange because it's Sapta Sindhu, 7 rivers, but there are 6 rivers in there because one river left. It left. The Saraswati left. So we have 6 rivers in this region, the Sapta Sindhu region. In Punjab, Panchab, yeah, that sort of thing, right? So we have 2 nations, one temporary, one permanent, and we have 6 rivers. So in 1960, this treaty was signed between India and Pakistan. The World Bank engineered this treaty. Mr. Nehru accepted it. So India got exclusive or near exclusive use of 3 smaller rivers, the eastern rivers, the Ravi, the Beas, and the Satluj. And Pakistan was given complete, unrestricted water of the 3 western rivers, the Indus, the Sindhu River, the Jhelum, and the Chenab. And India is given the right to tap into the western rivers for non-consumptive purposes. If you want to use it for hydroelectricity or flood control or whatever, that sort of thing. And if you do that, you have to share all the technical data with the Pakistanis in advance so that they know exactly what's happening. And then there are dispute resolving mechanisms and whatnot. And this treaty has no expiry date, and it has survived how many wars? I don't know, 165, 71. Uh, what else? The Kargil war. That's three wars. So it survived three wars, and the treaty has stood until now. But now India has ended it. India suspended the treaty. Uh, so that's the Indus Waters Treaty. It gave 80% of the waters of the Indus River, of these rivers, to Pakistan. It must be the most lopsided, one-sided treaty in the history of humanity. Not even a defeated power accepts a treaty like this. Such a one-sided treaty. So yes, and I have a video on this channel about the Indus Waters Treaty, about from 2022 or 23, I think, about a couple of years ago, in which I've spoken about this and the steps India has been taking. And I've been saying that India needs to uh, revisit this treaty and fix this historic blunder. So the Pakistanis, by doing the Pulwama, the Pahalagam massacre, have, well, finally, I think it's the straw that broke the camel's back, and that's it. It's the end of an era. Um, so what are going to be the long-term implications of Pakistan's agriculture, economy, internal stability? Now India is going to control what happens. We may not have complete access to complete control over all the waters, because the western rivers, they flow in the Himalayas and the mountains, and it's very hard to dam them. But we have various run of the river projects and all that's going on. It's going to give us enough control to to ramp up the amount of water we can retain in India and divert elsewhere. And many of these projects that we are undertaking, they will come to fruition in the next 5, 6, 7 years maximum. So you're going to see increasing pressure on Pakistan. Increasing amounts of water will be diverted by India now. And there's nothing the Pakistanis can do about this. Yeah, they can go to court, international court, blah, 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 do whatever you want. I don't care anymore. Yes, of course, some people will say, and they are right to say this, that it gives the China the historical precedent for doing something similar to us, because they control some of our upstream, some of the upstream regions of our rivers, like the Brahmaputra, the Ganga, etc. Especially the Brahmaputra is important, but it's okay. We will deal with it if it comes to that. And when it comes to the Brahmaputra, 80% of the waters of the Brahmaputra, the river gets those waters from within India itself, from Arunachal and other places. Only 20% comes from Tibet. So it's not going to be a huge issue. We'll have to find ways to deal with that if the Chinese go down that road. But Pakistan is going to face serious trouble now, because its agriculture is dependent on this water. Most of its agriculture is dependent on the water that comes from these three rivers. And it's a very poor country. It's dependent on agriculture. I don't know how much of its GDP comes from agriculture, but at least about 30-40% of its workforce is employed in the agriculture sector. And it could be really bad times for Pakistan. And they deserve it. I mean, how long can a nation like India just keep enduring this nonsense, terrorism? There's gonna be a time when we're gonna give it back. So I think more than a war, this could be the thing that squeezes Pakistan and really brings it to its knees. Okay, the Rajat Dalal says India's ability to restrict water to Pakistan is constrained by natural hydrological cycles, infrastructure gaps, and treaty design rules. The vast majority of the Indus system's water will continue to flow to Pakistan due to natural geography and treaty limitations, but with seasonal variations. Almost all Indians do not understand, and they believe that IWTA suspension has stopped the water from going to Pakistan. What's my opinion on the IWTA suspension? Naval blockade from southern Pakistan and building dam on Indus are two solid options that I see. Mr. 88 says that India has suspended the IWT Indus Waters Treaty. What's the essence of suspending this treaty since we have no storage dams on the western rivers, and building dams, it takes time. It'll take at least 10 years. So how will this affect Pakistan, right? So the question is, why suspend a treaty when there are no big dams on these rivers? These big dams don't exist yet. So please understand one thing. This is not a plumbing switch that, we're going to switch it off and the water dries out. It's not that. It's not a plumbing switch. This is a legal switch, the legal off ramp. So the suspension. So first of all, you have to understand that no nation is required to keep on abiding to a treaty that is not in its favor, or that severely is loaded against it. There are so many historical precedents of nations walking away unilaterally from a treaty. Donald Trump walked away from the Iran nuclear deal, the JCPOA, Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. Not the JWS, James Webb, whatever. So Donald Trump walked away from it, from the Iran nuclear deal, unilaterally, despite the treaty being signed according to international law. The Chinese had an agreement, a treaty with the UK about Hong Kong, the status of Hong Kong, one nation, two systems. They walked away from it. They said, we no longer recognize that, unilaterally. So if a treaty victimizes you, or if it is unfair to you, you have the right to walk away from it. So India is walking away from the treaty. That's it. There is historical precedent for that. That's number one. Please understand that. So now, once you say publicly and you announce that you are walking away from a treaty, the treaty is suspended, or whatever technical term you want to use, then you can start doing things, taking actions. As long as the treaty is in force, you're not allowed to build dams, right? You're not allowed to build dams. So the suspension of the treaty has removed India's own self-binding obligations. Okay, all those things. Disclose in advance whatever plans you have, and you need the neutral experts to arbitrate everything, and how much water you can store in of the western rivers. There's a cap to it, beyond which India cannot store more water, and so on. So from this point on, India can approve projects without having to wait for Pakistani objections or anything, or World Bank mediation. No more need to worry about Pakistani objections or World Bank mediation. So what you have had for the past 64 years is that the Pakistanis had an entitlement. They were entitled to the Indus waters. Now India has turned it into a revocable privilege. If we choose, then you can have it. If we choose not to give it to you, then you don't get it. We decide. So now it's a privilege. It's no longer an entitlement for Pakistan. Now, what leverage does India have? We have no huge dams, right? We have something called run-of-river projects. So we don't have storage dams, but we are operating multiple projects. We are currently building and in the process of finishing about a dozen run-of-the-river projects. Hydropower plants like Kishanganga, like Dulhasti, like Ratle, like Pakal Dul, Sawalkot, and so on and so forth. Okay, I don't remember. So all the names. These run-of-the-river schemes have ponds attached to them, which is like a daily or weekly balancing pond. So if you coordinate the gate operations of all these, of multiple run-of-the-river projects, reservoirs in tandem at the same time, you can withhold very large quantities of water. And you can do that during Pakistan's agricultural season. So that will cause havoc downstream. And you can do this actually without violating any international humanitarian norms or whatever. So, and if you want to do fast track storage of water, it's no longer going to take India 10 years to do that. So there are multiple western river projects that are currently under construction, like the ones I named. And most of these, one of them, I think it is Pakal Dul, it becomes operational next year, I think. And there is Ratle that becomes operational in 2028, and Sawalkot in 29. And these will add a huge capacity of live storage of water. and there are other projects that are going to become operational in the early 2030s. So in the next 7-8 years, we're gonna have storage capacity of several billion cubic meters of water in the region. So do you understand? It's not just talk anymore. It's not just talk anymore. We actually can squeeze the Pakistanis without crossing the what they call the kinetic threshold. See, you can do airstrikes, which is like you do it once and then the world says stop and we have to stop it. Airstrikes, you do it once and stop. Water leverage is continuous. It is immune to diplomatic pressure and diplomatic vetoes. It is invisible. Okay, so that's huge, and we can throttle the flow of water incrementally. So it gives us a graduated response ladder that will stop short of humanitarian catastrophe, but it keeps Pakistan under constant pressure, and you can apply it at will. You understand? So it's not about turning off the tap tomorrow morning. This suspension of the Indus Waters Treaty has unlocked a huge toolkit that is going to grow more painful for Pakistan every agricultural season, even before the first mega dam is finished. So this is slow burn leverage that we have, and it's going to be compounded by financial and diplomatic costs that India can impose on Pakistan. So we can achieve what military actions, sporadic military actions, whether it is airstrikes like Balakot or it is the surgical strikes, that that is just symbolic. This leverage that we now get is going to force behavioral change on Pakistan, painful behavioral change in Pakistan, while we keep our growth trajectory intact. Do you understand? That's the implication of the abrogation, suspension, obeying, whatever it is, of the Indus Waters Treaty. It's huge. It's genuine leverage we get. This is an inflection point in the history of Pakistan. Whatever amount of time it is, the Pakistanis have left for the country. This is where it changes. This is where it all changes. Pranay Paul says, considering Trump's track record of channeling arms and aid to Pakistan, Israel, and Egypt, how likely is it that the US would adopt a double-faced stance if a full-scale India-Pakistan war breaks out? Could Washington, again, under the garb of restraint, try to diplomatically pressure India, especially amid global economic fragility and shifting alliances? Is there a real danger that the US would once again prop up Pakistan, either directly or indirectly, or are they now merely in it to sell weapons to both sides and profit off instability? Despite Pakistan's strategic irrelevance and internal collapse, do you foresee any surprise alignments forming around it? How might China exploit the situation? Would it remain calculatedly neutral, or would it seize the chaos to challenge India on a second front? Look, okay, let's consider the scenarios you are painting for us. It's a good exercise in a thought experiment. So let's say Washington wants to sell weapons to both sides. Let's say India and Pakistan go to war. And Washington says, oh yeah, let's grab the opportunity to sell weapons to both sides. What money does Pakistan have? Do they have the capacity to absorb US weapons? Do they have money to pay the Americans? They are going to the World Bank and the IMF with begging balls, right? Where's the money? What's the point of selling anything to Pakistan? And what does the US get out of it? The US, at this point, at this juncture in history, finds itself in a situation where they have to invest in India, invest political capital, invest technological capital, other kinds of capital in India, because of the situation with China. We have reached a bigger inflection point a couple of weeks ago when the tariff war started. The US imposed 145% tariffs on China. The Chinese retaliated by 125% tariffs, which means the system is gone. There's no more trade between the US and China. Supply chains are fragmenting. The world is bifurcating. And the US needs India on its side. It's part of the broader Indo-Pacific strategy. They need nations like India on its side, Australia, Japan, who are its vassals anyway, etc. But India is a major linchpin in the strategy. And if India goes on the other side, then it's a big problem for the US. And Pakistan now, how much value does Pakistan have? It looks like the West has decided to once again ditch Pakistan. And Pakistan seems to be once again fishing for a new daddy, for a new master, which is why it looks like they admitted publicly that they've been doing the West's dirty work for 3-4 decades, right? Um, so the question you have to ask yourself is, what does the US gain by diplomatically pressuring India, or taking the side of Pakistan, or propping up Pakistan? It's only gonna, if they do that, it's gonna hurt India, and it's gonna benefit China. Do you think the West wants to do anything that benefits China today? That's the question. Let's say, okay, let's say there's a war that breaks out between India and Pakistan, and the US sells arms to both sides. Let's say Pakistan has no money to buy arms. US gives arms to Pakistan. So then Pakistan and India are able to fight on a reasonably even keel, and the war drags on, and India becomes a very undesirable market for manufacturing. So nobody wants to invest in India. Then all the manufacturers who are trying to move out of China, where will they go? Will they go to Vietnam? Does Vietnam have the capacity, the large scale, massive capacity to absorb that amount of manufacturing capability? No. The only nation that can do it is India. So the US would be shooting itself in its own foot by taking the side of Pakistan in this. So you see, from the perspective of its own self-interest, the US is not in a position where it will support Pakistan if there's a war that breaks out with India, between India and Pakistan. Mr. 88er says Donald Trump said that the Kashmir issue that the Kashmir issue is over 1,500 years old. But we all know that 1,500 years ago, Kashmir was an integral part of Bharat, and the issue is barely 75 years old due to the birth of West Pakistan. Why is he making such a narrative? What's your take? Look, you have to understand Donald Trump has a certain style of speaking. He likes to look, he is not speaking for the benefit of the international audience. He's speaking for the benefit of his voters, for his domestic audience. Now, if you go to the US and you live among the Americans for some time, and if you're not in Washington, D.C., Maryland, wherever, then you will see that most Americans have no idea of what the outside world is like. They have no interest in the outside world. They don't know what the outside world is like. They don't know where is Cyprus. They don't know where is Kashmir. They don't know where is Kyrgyzstan. They have no idea where is Papua New Guinea. They don't care where is Papua New Guinea or Kashmir. And they have no idea when which conflict started. So Donald Trump likes to exaggerate things for hyperbolic effect. So what is he really trying to say? So what he's really trying to say is that this is a conflict that's been going on forever, and we are not responsible for it. We didn't start it. We are not part of it. Let the two sides decide. That's the message he's trying to send to his audience, to his public, to his voters. He's telling his voters, look, this is not an American issue. This has nothing to do with us. We should stay out of it. That's a forever conflict. That's what he's trying to say. I don't know if he's aware of the history of the conflict or whatever. Maybe he is, maybe he's not, but he has a certain style of speaking. You don't have to, you should not take it at face value. He's trying to send a deeper message that the US needs to stay out of this. This is a different matter. It's a matter that the US should not be involved in. That's what he's saying. And maybe he's trying to make a reference to events that started about 1,500 years ago, perhaps. Okay, I don't know. And maybe it's a good idea for Indians to educate the world about the history of this entire matter. That it all begins in 1948. It all begins in 1947. It begins before that with certain Indian politicians agreeing to the formation of Pakistan undemocratically, without taking the consent of the people of India, and giving up Indian territory without consulting India. That's completely undemocratic, yes. And then this artificial temporary nation is formed, and then with the with the involvement of the UK, they grab parts of Jammu and Kashmir illegally, and then Mr. Nehru decides to stop the Indian army from retaking whatever the Pakistanis had taken, and that's why we have POK, and that's the birth of the issue. The issue is not Kashmir, the issue is Pakistan. Pakistan is an illegitimate nation. It was created undemocratically. It is land that is stolen from us. It is our ancestral land that has been stolen from us. And we're going to retake it whenever we do. Maybe we will get to see it. Maybe our descendants will get to see it, but it's going to return to us. That's our ancestral land. So that's the deal. There is no Kashmir issue. There's a Pakistan issue. And the TikTok is running now for Pakistan. The clock is ticking backwards now. It's a countdown. The countdown has started. So Donald Trump is saying this is a matter that the US needs to stay out of. That's the message he's trying to sell to his audience. That's it. Okay, Dins says, if India enters a war with Pakistan, Bangladesh would likely join sides with Pakistan. Can India afford to fight a two-front war again? Is taking POK the final solution to this or not? If Pakistan balkanizes, can we ensure that they do denuclearize too? Okay, lots of questions. Let's address the two-front war question in this matter. Not all other questions. Look, this idea of a two-front war, it's something that we have discussed many times. And it's something that Indian defense experts and the armed forces brass and all, they discuss all the time. It's something that is very much at the forefront of our mind. But the two-front war issue that we discuss is not Pakistan and Bangladesh. It's Pakistan and China. Pakistan and Bangladesh going to war with India is not a two-front war. It's a joke. A two-front war is when Pakistan and China simultaneously go to war with India. That's the two-front war scenario that we take very seriously. Pakistan and Bangladesh together going to war against India is not something to... Of course, it's a serious matter, but that's not a two-front war. That is a Disney cartoon. Okay? Listen, if Bangladesh tries to go to war with India, oh my God. Look, it makes no sense for them to do that. If they do it, it will be the end of that temporary nation also. Because, see, Bangladesh too is a temporary nation. It's an artificial nation, carved out of our territory again. And look, I don't think if Pakistan goes to war with India, Bangladesh is likely to join. They will be obliterated and flattened and sent back into the Bay of Bengal if they do that. They they stand no chance, absolutely no chance. It will be a great thing for India if Bangladesh decides to go to war with India, because we get the chance to cut two chickens' necks. We get to widen the Siliguri corridor significantly by at least 100 kilometers, and we get to retake Chittagong, etc., and connect our Far East with the Bay of Bengal. So it's great. If the Bangladeshis want to do that, please be my guest. Please be our guests. Please go ahead. Stephen says, don't you think that Mr. Modi has said to Mr. Putin in the past, recently, that it's not the time of war, it's not the decade of war. So he will not take any steps any warlike steps in response to this Pahalagam attack. Otherwise, that statement will look like hypocrisy. Okay, look, let's say that we do all the calculations, the cost-benefit analysis on all that, and we decide that it makes sense to go to war with Pakistan in the aftermath of this massacre that they perpetrated on our citizens. So do you think that if it is the right thing for the nation, then the Prime Minister should worry about his own self-image, that I will look like a hypocrite? What is important? What is the duty of the Prime Minister or the leader of a nation? To serve the nation's interest. And it doesn't matter what it makes him look like, whether if it makes him look like a liar or a hypocrite, doesn't matter. The nation's interest is paramount. So even if he has said to Mr. Putin that this is not the time for war, and if he decides that now is the time for war with Pakistan, he can very clearly say that we desire peace, but you have left us with no option by doing this. Pakistan has a track record. If you look at the statistics, if you look at the data, if you have been tracking the patterns, okay, Pakistan has a pattern of one major terrorist attack against India every 18 or so months since 2015, 2016. So they have been doing this regularly. So Mr. Modi can say, look, this is not the time for war. We desire peace. But you are forcing this on us. You keep on unleashing terror attacks on us, and we have to stop this. That's the only way we will have peace. To achieve peace, you have, what is it? Non-violence, ahimsa, all that. Ahimsa paramo dharma, right? That non-violence is the greatest state of being and all that. So if you really desire peace, and if you really wish non-violence to be the norm, then you have to destroy the violent people, don't you? So understand that it doesn't matter what has been said. If someone constantly attacks you, you got to destroy them. So if the time is now, according to calculations that I'm not aware of, to go to war with Pakistan, then it doesn't matter what Mr. Modi said to Mr. Putin. We were attacked. We didn't start this, but we're going to end it. We can say that. So we can say that, listen, it's not the time for war, but we have been left with no choice. They started this, so we will end it. So it doesn't matter if it looks like hypocrisy. And look, if you start acting hypocritically as a nation in geopolitics, it means your time is finally coming. Only the powerful get to act like hypocrites. Look at the West, the biggest hypocrites of all. And are they ashamed of being hypocrites? No, they wear it on the sleeve. So I think it's time for India to embrace a little bit of hypocrisy. Okay, that's when you know that the nation is finally arriving on the global geopolitical stage. Pranay Paul. Okay, lots of questions from Pranay. You've often emphasized that India needs 20 years of uninterrupted growth without getting dragged into major conflicts. In light of escalating provocations, how should India strategically balance its economic aspirations with national security? And if a limited war with Pakistan becomes unavoidable, should our doctrine aim to end it decisively within minutes without escalating to nuclear options? Okay, that's good questions. Yes, I have said this. I have emphasized this multiple times. I make it a point to say this over and over again. India needs at least 20 years of uninterrupted growth without getting dragged, embroiled in any major conflict. Look, why do I say this? Today is 2025. This is the year 2025. Let's say we're talking about 20 years. 2045 is the time horizon we're talking about. Today, India's per capita GDP is $2,500, roughly $2,500. For us to be reasonably well-off nation, we will need a per capita GDP which is reaching the $10,000 mark. Okay, that's when your people can live a comfortable life. So we want a per capita GDP of 10,000. We have currently a per capita GDP of 2.5 thousand, 1/4. We need to make it 4 times what it is today. That will require us to have about 7% plus growth, compounded growth every year. 7+%, okay? Minimum 7%, ideally more than that. And we'll also need about 2% of our GDP to be invested through FDI, etc., every year, and so on. So it's going to need a multiplicity of factors for us to reach, to start touching the $10,000 mark in the next 20 years. We need that. So let's say that's our target. For that, you need a very peaceful, conducive environment in the country so that, foreign investors like to come there and come here, and the environment is good, and there's no war, and there's no terrorism. So you need that. So we don't want to be embroiled in any major conflict. But let's say someone forces the conflict on us, like Pakistan keeps doing. In that case, what do we do? Let's say a limited war with Pakistan becomes unavoidable, like Pranay is saying. What should we do? How should we approach that war? Let me tell you what that war should be like. First of all, it should be a sub-nuclear war. It should not trip any nuclear red lines. So how do you do that? And secondly, how long should the war last? And what should be the objectives? It should be what I would call a pulse pause war. Pulse pause. It should be a war in which you inflict a military and political defeat on Pakistan in 72 hours maximum. So it's not a blitzkrieg kind of strategy that you use. Blitzkrieg means you penetrate deep into someone's territory. No, this is going to be a shallow advance. So maybe 30, 40, maximum 50 kilometers you advance and you grab the territory, and then you unilaterally announce a pause to hostilities. So your armed forces need to be ready for it, obviously. Your tank divisions and whatever, You need to take substantial territory, not too much, shallow advances, 30, 40, 50 kilometers maximum, hold on to the territory, and then announce a pause unilaterally. And you need to degrade their air capabilities, air force, and all that. Means you can crater their runways, take out a few planes, don't attack any of the major infrastructure, don't destroy their military high command or something, don't attack the critical installations and all. Keep it below the nuclear red lines, but inflict a devastating blow that is a clear and unmistakable defeat for Pakistan politically and militarily. And then unilaterally announce a stop, a pause. That's a pulse pause. So the war should be over in 72 hours maximum. That's what needs to happen, and it should not be a little surgical strike or a one airstrike in the middle of the night. No, it should be visible. It should be unmistakable that India has inflicted a disastrous defeat without breaching the nuclear red lines. And don't think that Pakistanis are crazy and then they'll start lobbing nuclear weapons. They want to stay alive. Their generals are still in Pakistan, right? It's not like they're operating out of London or Dubai. They are in Pakistan. So they don't want to lose their lives and their families' lives and all that. So the point is, it's definitely possible to have a war, quick, short, sharp war with a significant visible victory, and have it end in 72 hours. And this is no longer 2019. In 2019, when we did the Balakot airstrike, we did not have the Rafales. Technology really matters. We had those Mirages and all, and we have, the Pakistanis had F-16s. Today, India's 26 Rafales can take out 100 F-16s from standoff distances without the F-16s even coming close to being dangerous to the Rafales. That's the kind of capability the Rafales have. They can take out 100 F-16s from a very long distance, and the F-16s don't even have the range to engage the Rafales. That's what you get when you have a 4.5 generation fighter plane. So yeah, the advantage is with us right now, and it is for our leadership to decide if now is the time for a war with Pakistan, or whether we just want to strangulate them slowly, drop by drop, via various means. But if war becomes unavoidable, it should be a very rapid, decisive victory, 72 hours maximum, pulse and pause. TechWise says, is this the right time to use the opportunity to dismantle Pakistan in front of the West, as prominent leaders have said that they will support India no matter what actions we take? They have not said that they will support India no matter what actions we take. They have said that they stand with India and they support India and all that. So India is the victim of a major terrorist strike. Our citizens have been massacred, 26 of us, and every civilized country has expressed its support towards India. They have not said that they will support India no matter what happens. Maybe some of the indications could be in that direction, but you can't take it for granted. So then the question arises, is this the time to dismantle Pakistan? The surest way to dismantle Pakistan is to look, the temptation obviously rises that we want to turn Pakistan into another Gaza. Every Indian, we have absorbed so many terror strikes. We have been bled slice by slice, cut by cut for decades by the Pakistanis. Every Indian yearns for revenge. And I'm sure for most Indians, nothing will please them more than to turn Pakistan into another Gaza and then invite Donald Trump to build hotels there. Yeah, I'm pretty sure most Indians would feel that way. Maybe 75%, 70% Indians will feel that way, perhaps. I'm just guessing a random number. But we have to look at the bigger picture. What is it that we truly need as a nation? We need a win, sure. And we would love to have some revenge for everything that's been done to us. But what's bigger for us? Bigger than revenge is victory. Sometimes victory itself is revenge. But we need to win. Simply getting revenge is not enough for us. We have to win. What is winning? Winning means Pakistan no longer exists. And if we can achieve that without sending a single missile, isn't that better? The biggest, Yeah, I know that. It's Sun Tzu who said this. The best victory is a victory in which no one even knows that there was a fight or there was a struggle. The best general is that general who secures victory without anyone ever knowing that there was a war somewhere. So I think that's the best way to win. Instead of going to war, there are so many other levers that we have. The Indus water street, now we can starve them of water slowly, squeeze them gradually, drop by drop. Every year the pressure will increase. Every year the pressure will increase. 26, a new dam becomes operational. 28, another dam becomes operational. We already have many run of the river dams. By by the early 2030s, larger dams will become operational. We are already building these projects. Every year the pressure will mount on Pakistan. Okay, and if the pressure mounts, if the water starts drying out, if the water flow starts drying out, that agriculture suffers, that people will start rising up against the army. That this is because of the action of the army and the ISIS that we are in this position. It's not India's fault. We have to make sure that they understand this. Then maybe there'll be an internal revolution in Pakistan. Pakistan is a nation that is artificially held together by the army. The Balochis don't want to be part of Pakistan. The people of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa don't want to be part of Pakistan. The people of Sindhu Desh don't want to be part of Pakistan. There are so many people who don't want to be part of Pakistan. Give them the opportunity to get out of Pakistan and become independent. So I think the process starts now. This is the right way to do it. Yeah, of course, if the need is there to launch a few strikes in Pakistan or whatever, if it's important that we do this, if the calculations fit, then we should do it. But dismantling will take a little bit more time, in my opinion. And I hope I'm wrong. Okay, I hope I'm wrong. I hope it happens faster. Prakhar Gupta says, please don't ignore this question. I've been asking from February. There was a news article in February that terrorist organizations like JEM, Lashkar, LET, etc., have invited many Hamas leaders in some anti-India event organized in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. There were also reports of some big game was being discussed between these groups, and now a brutal terror attack unfolded in Kashmir, and LET backed to TRF took the responsibility. Do you see any connection in these events? Were those reports warning signs for us, which our intelligence agencies ignored? Were these attacks ISIS and Hamas backed? Look, I have no idea whether the Hamas and ISIS were behind this. How can I know if I don't have access to the intelligence reports and to what actually happened? And I'm not supposed to have any access to those intelligence reports. Obviously not, right? So I don't know. But look, if Hamas and ISIS and all were invited, then there could be linkages. So there is circumstantial evidence that there are connections, for sure. So all terror groups, they are birds of the same feather. Not all terror groups, but these terror groups, Hamas and ISIS and JEM, LET, ISI, Pakistan Army, they're all birds of the same feather and they'll flock together. Then there must be some kind of connections possibly between them. I can only speculate. I can't say for sure if that is the case. So a terror attack happened in Kashmir and TRF took responsibility. Yeah, so I can only speculate is my question, is my answer. There is definitely the possibility, there is a connection, but I don't have the information that could, that could prove it or disprove it. Okay, this question. So this question is asked. I get this question every day in the comments, every single day, the past 3 years or whatever. Every day I get this question: is this the right time to take POK back? Will the US support this move? Knowing that China might attack on the other side, will India do something like this? How far will India possibly go to take revenge? Revenge. Is there a possibility for India to reclaim POK now? Says Abhinandan Sen. Is there a possibility for India to reclaim POK now, especially after the Pahalagam attack? If India does reclaim it, will Pakistan try and threaten nukes? Moinak Mondal says, is this not the golden opportunity for taking back POK after the Pahalagam attack? And is India sufficient to block the Indus? I already discussed that. Okay. Is this the time to take POK back now? Probably not. Let it fall into our lap on its own. That's what I would say. There definitely is great amount of anger in India. There's a great desire and thirst for revenge right now, and for Pakistan to be taught a lesson. So maybe The government may or may not decide to take some military action. If we take it, we will take it in a calibrated manner. I don't think we'll take back POK. Maybe some portion of POK may be taken back, perhaps, possibly, in the next few days. Possibly, who knows? It's possible. Uh, but I think POK, all of it may not be the time, perhaps now. Will the US support this move? The US will try and stay neutral and say that, please don't fight and all that. But if they have decided to throw Pakistan under the bus, they'll be okay with it, perhaps. So it depends on a variety of parameters that are not quite clear to us. They're not available. The values of the parameters are not clear in the public domain. If you are high up in the government, in the defense ministry, or maybe in the RNAW or in the PMO, then you will know what the exact value of each parameter is, and then you will know whether we are going to be taking this action or that action. But sitting here, I can only say that this is likely or that's likely. So I think there are multiple scenarios. Scenario one is that we simply apply the leverage of the Indus Waters Treaty and gray zone economic actions, etc., on Pakistan to squeeze Pakistan, and we diplomatically isolate them. They no longer have the backing of the US. They have openly claimed that the US and the UK and the West have been paying them for dirty work. So now they are no longer on good terms with the West. So their only backers will be what? Pakistan will be China now, right? So we can diplomatically isolate Pakistan. We can make it really hard for Pakistan to get, loans from the IMF and World Bank. We can squeeze them in the FATF. We can squeeze them in so many different ways. Only China will come to help them now, right? So it looks like there is a clear bifurcation of the world order right here. India is going on one side, and Pakistan and China are going on another side. So now I'll not bring in the Russia factor in this at this point in time. So my point is, we have lots of leverage over Pakistan. Let's just, or maybe if the situation is like China may get involved in Pakistan soon, then maybe it makes sense to take some military action now. So lots of things need to be considered. I think it is scenario one is that we don't take any action. We apply all kinds of other leverage in Pakistan. That is a more likely scenario. Maybe 70% likelihood. Maybe 15% likelihood is a short, sharp war. Okay, and maybe 15% likelihood is we take back POK. So that's the kind of probability that I see. Okay, this is by Harshavardhan. After Prime Minister Modi met President Trump in February, several major events occurred in India. First of all, President's rule was imposed in Manipur, and the situation is now under control. You think it's under control? Kind of. It's not quite under control. Manipur is still occupied by foreigners. More than half of Manipur is under foreign occupation. It's not under control. Yeah, right now there's no major violence happening. That's the only thing. But the foreigners are still squatting on Indian territory in Manipur. Okay, so Project K, Cookie Land for Christ, is still ongoing. Okay, President's rule was imposed in Manipur. Secondly, there have been frequent visits by US government officials to India. Okay, the Indian government has agreed to give greater access to American products. Well, when Trump goes ballistic and nuclear with the tariffs, you got to give them access. Next, the US Treasury Secretary announced that India is the first country to sign a trade agreement with the US. That's going to happen most likely soon. It's ongoing right now. Negotiations, talks. 6, the Indian government imposed tariffs on Chinese steel. Well, they were dumping cheap steel on us, so we had to impose tariffs. Yeah, sure. The 7th, the US government has expressed support for India's actions against Pakistani terrorists. Well, they had to, because they want India on their side. Next, there are also rumors that America and Israel supplied precision strike bombs after the Pahalagam attack. Okay, I don't discuss rumors. I have no idea. So my assessment, says Harshvardhan, the Indian government has agreed to President Trump's demands while securing India's sovereignty and gaining greater access to the US market. What are my views? My views is that India is doing the tightrope walk act, and India is doing the right thing. Look, when you have a nation like the US, the most powerful entity that exists in the world today, the most powerful nation ever, you've got to give them the right amount of respect, and you've got to do what is right. What is right for yourself means that sometimes you have to make concessions to the US, and you have to give them what they want. So if they say that you are imposing too many tariffs on US goods, then we're going to have to cut the tariffs down and give them more access to our market. But we can do that in a way that gives us also more access to their market. So that's why we have a round of talks that's happening. So it's going to be hopefully a win-win. Okay, you want Indian tariffs to go down? Sure. What can you do for us? We will bring them down. What will you do for us? So that's a win-win kind of situation. So look, I have said this, right? That during President Trump's presidency, India-US relations will be at their highest peak, most likely. I think that's pretty much on its way. Does it mean that India loses some part of its sovereignty? I don't think India quite loses too much sovereignty. There's some give and take, obviously, in terms of access to the markets and all those things. The US will want India on its side in certain things, like when it comes to actions against China and so on, which means that the India-China sector, the frontier, the border, the LAC may again turn hot. It's a possibility. It's a possibility. We have to be careful about that. It means that China and Pakistan once again become a deal, an item. That's also a possibility. That's more of a likelihood now. Looks like that's all happening in real time right now. So a lot of things are happening. I've been saying this for quite some time. This is going to be a tremendously active geopolitical season. Things that the kind of geopolitical change you're seeing in a week today, it's typically something that happens in a decade historically. So a complete realignment of the global world order. I think that look, there's always a danger, a fear that we may end up becoming a US vassal. I don't think that's quite the case. India is still mostly a sovereign nation. Manipur raises some question marks because we still have foreigners, I don't know how many lakhs of them sitting on Manipur territory, Indian territory. That's a problem. So we're going to have to deal with these things one by one. But the Manipur issue is a geopolitical issue. The Biden administration started this. Hopefully, the Trump administration ends that. So we'll have to see. So I think India-US relations are on a great trajectory. Mr. Modi is a very good leader, a very capable leader, and he's the right person to deal with someone like Mr. Trump. They understand each other very well, and I think Mr. Modi will be able to successfully safeguard our interests. That's what I would say, and one certainly hopes that is the case. Okay, this question, Animation Clips says, please take this question. I've been asking for the last month. It'll be weird to tell, but I have a gut feeling that the world is heading towards World War III. Let's think a hypothetical situation. World War III is going. India is battling with Pakistan, China. India, internal civil war bursts out. What can a person do in this time? Let's imagine, discuss, etc. If you feel, okay, you want to add viruses in the mix. My gut feeling has never been wrong. Even for COVID, I started using mask, sanitizer 6 months before. Well, you have a sixth sense. My whole family was COVID positive. I was the only one not infected. I still don't know if I ever got COVID or not. So many lockdowns and what the Omicron variant and whatnot. Where is COVID today? Where is COVID today? The whole world was shut down for that virus. Where is it today? How come it doesn't exist anymore? What a joke it was. Bioweapon. Anyhow, is the world going towards World War III? The world is going towards a Cold War. And we don't want a World War III. I hope your gut feeling is wrong. I don't see it going towards World War III. World War III means nuclear war between the major powers. And that's the end of the world. What we're witnessing is a new Cold War. So the entire world is being split into two camps. I don't think there's a third camp to be seen very much. Is there a global South camp? I don't think so. The two camps are the US and the Western-led camp and the China and Russia-led camp. And India, I think, has probably made a choice somewhere. I had said this, I don't know how many episodes ago, 20, 30, maybe 20 episodes ago, roughly, that once Trump comes to power, he's going to ask India to make a choice. You're either with us or you're against us. I think India has made the choice, which is why I'm telling you that something has changed somewhere in the world. I can sense it. There is no evidence whatsoever of anything having changed, but it's a gut feel, like I'm saying. Something has changed. I think India and the US are on the same side now. I don't know what it means for India, Russia. Probably there will be some kind of allowance for India, Russia as well, because Russia, because Russia and the US also have their own allowance. So it's a very complicated situation. But overall, the world is bifurcating. It's splitting into two camps. It's a Cold War situation all over again. Supply chains are fragmenting. Everything is fragmenting, and it's a bifurcation of the global world order. And this is called a Cold War. So we're going to have two parallel systems, two parallel economic blocks, and two parallel geopolitical blocks. And India seems to be on the Western side now. So that's where we are going. I certainly hope that there is no World War III situation. That's the end of the world. We don't want that. Okay, questions about scramjets. Anonymous scientist says DRDO has successfully completed 1000 plus seconds ground test of an active cooled scramjet combustion engine, which is a gigantic achievement. No other country has achieved this. What do you think about this? Pranay says DRDO has just successfully tested an active cooled scramjet engine for 1003 seconds, if I remember correctly. A breakthrough being hailed as a major step towards operational hypersonic cruise missiles. How significant is this achievement for India's strategic deterrence and technological edge? What does this breakthrough mean for India's position in the global military technology race, especially considering claims that even the US and China have not achieved yet this level of sustained scramjet performance? Ashish says DRDO tested 1000-second scramjet engine. Sircon of Russia has a 120-second scramjet phase. What are the implications? Okay. Pretty interesting stuff happening in the world. In this time, we're talking about India. So, DRDO has something called the DRDL. It's a laboratory I think it's in Hyderabad. Okay. So, this lab, they ran an actively cooled subscale combustor, a subscale engine for 1003 seconds. And the airflow was Mach 5, Mach 6, which is 5 or 6 times the speed of sound. Okay, and I think this was tested in Hyderabad. So until now, the US, their longest publicly acknowledged hypersonic run was about 6 minutes. I think about 300 something seconds. Okay, DARPA, DARPA does this stuff, and China has claimed that it has done ground tests about 600 seconds or something, 400 to 600 seconds. But that's a claim that they've made. Nobody has verified that. Obviously, even the US claim is also a claim. Nobody has seen that, and so on. And it is estimated that the zircon scramjet engine has it could go up to 300 seconds or 400 seconds, most likely. So what India has achieved by crossing the 1000-second milestone is that, see, first of all, we are using something called regenerative cooling. So, this engine, the scramjet engine, it uses some kind of fuel. It's going to be a hydrocarbon-based fuel like petrol, kerosene, or some kind of exotic hydrocarbon compound or something. So, when you use regenerative cooling, it means that the fuel itself absorbs the heat before injection. So it is not just a fuel, it is also a coolant. Can you imagine that? It is not merely a fuel which will burn, it is also a coolant. I remember reading as a kid, the Americans have this aircraft called the SR-71 Blackbird. It's retired now, but it had an exotic fuel. The SR-71 Blackbird, it used a fuel that would burn only at incredibly high temperatures. You ignite a matchstick and you dump it in the fuel, it will not burn. But it will burn at extremely high temperatures. So I think India is using something like that. That sort of fuel for the regenerative cooling. It absorbs heat, it acts as a coolant, and it is also the fuel in the combustion chamber, right? And most likely India is using some kind of alloy or ceramic material inside the combustion engine, the liner, that can survive about, 1800 or 2000 degrees Celsius temperatures, huge temperatures. And you will also need some kind of real-time combustion control algorithms to keep the flame anchored and pointing in the right direction despite pressure oscillations and whatnot at this incredibly high Mach number, 5 or 6. So it's an incredible achievement. 1000 seconds plus means that now we have an engine that can be hypersonic for 1500 kilometers. The Zircon is hypersonic in the end stage, the last 300 seconds or 120 seconds, whatever it is. We have an engine that, when taken to the larger scale, when made into a full scale thing, it can propel a cruise missile completely hypersonically for 1500 or so kilometers from launch to impact. It's consistently hypersonic. It's not supersonic and then in the last phase it is hypersonic. It's hypersonic throughout. That's incredible. Okay, so that's fantastic. Now we have to understand one thing. Important thing is that the Zircon flies. The Zircon missile flies. Okay, what we have is a subscale test in the ground test. Now we're going to be testing this. We have a hypersonic demonstrated test that is scheduled for next year, 2026, in which we will most likely test this engine, this combustor, probably a full scale version. So right now we have a scaled down version of that. Let's say the combustor is supposed to be, hypothetically, let's say 1 meter long. Maybe we have something that is about 30 centimeters or 40 centimeters long. So it's a small scale model of the thing. So we have solved the physics problem. Now we have to solve the engineering problem. Understand? So I think it's amazing. It's awesome. It means that India is developing technology that very few nations have, and probably a first in its class technology. I don't think it's possible the Americans may have secretly tested a 1000 second engine or something, but well, nobody has publicly announced it. So I would say great job, DRDO. DRDO gets a lot of flack for a lot of things, but outstanding job. And let's test this on the demonstrator vehicle next year. And hopefully by the end of this decade, we can have actual hypersonic missiles that can fly 1500 kilometers fully hypersonic based on this technology. So I think India is now, so India has transitioned, leapfrogged essentially overnight from a non-contender in the hypersonic race to a front runner in the hypersonic race. Overnight, we have gone from a non-contender to a front runner in the hypersonic race. Amazing achievement, and I would like to congratulate and thank the scientists and engineers for their work. Teja Reddy says, in an era of deglobalization and supply chain securitization, should India align with Western techno-industrial coalitions like the CHIPS Act and IPEF, even at the cost of alienating the Global South, where it seeks leadership? The Global South needs leadership. The Global South seeks leadership. Should India align with the CHIPS Act and the Indo-Pacific, whatever it is, etc., which is led by the West? I say India should participate in these things on India's terms. If you want to be a leader, you have to set the agenda, not withdraw from participation. Do you understand? If you withdraw from participation, there goes your chance at leadership. It's over. You can't be a leader if you don't participate. You have to not merely participate, but you have to participate in setting the agenda. So India should participate in all these initiatives, coalitions, whatever you want to call them. And India should represent the Global South in these. And like we did in the G20, we set the agenda. In the 2023 session, the year cycle of G20, we set much of the agenda. Right? So India has demonstrated that we have the diplomatic heft and depth to set agendas at the highest level. So India should certainly participate in the CHIPS Act and IPEF and whatever other opportunities we get, and participate in a meaningful way, participate in a way that aligns with our interests, contributes something positive to the world, and puts us in a position where we are setting the agenda in cooperation with others. You don't have to be the only one setting the agenda. Obviously not. There are bigger powers than you, but you should participate in the agenda setting process. So I think India should do that for sure. That's how you genuinely become a leader, not by withdrawing and being aloof. Okay, let's take some non-geopolitics questions. Nutan Roshan says, how was Mustafa Kemal Ataturk able to become such a great leader? How was he able to develop a nation with radical mentality into a modern nation? From a military nation, officer to a great leader, how did he get that power? And how is a leader truly capable of bringing out the full potential of his people and lead them towards development? Okay, look, Ataturk, I can give you a 2 hour lecture. I can give you a 1 week seminar also. I mean, he's one of a kind. Okay, he was one of a kind. Uh, to compress that long story and make it short, what can I say? How can I approach that? See, Ataturk was born in Thessaloniki, in present day Greece. It was then called Salonika. It was part of the Ottoman Empire. And he was born to a Turkish father and an Albanian origin mother. Father's name I forget, Ali Riza perhaps. Mother's name was Zubaida. Yeah, okay, and so on. And his father died or something, and his mother remarried, and he was Mustafa Kemal Atatürk. Mustafa, as was called, he was very rebellious. He was sent to an army school, and he was kind of sent to very many various schools. He was always expelled, but he went to the army school, and there he found his discipline and all that. And he was great at math and all that, all those things, artillery calculations and all that stuff. He was good at that, and he participated in various military conflicts and all, and he distinguished himself. Eventually, he was the man standing against Winston Churchill in Gallipoli, uh, the Dardanelles, and he's the guy who saved Turkey from the invasion fleet of Winston Churchill. It was 1915, the Gallipoli campaign, which was a disaster and a humiliation for Winston Churchill and for the West and for the Anzacs. Indians also, unfortunately, had to participate in that. And so he was hailed as a national hero, which he was. And he participated in other various other uh, theaters of war as well. Eventually, so he was a distinguished general. In 1920 or wherever it was, he after the defeat of the German-led coalition in the First World War, Turkey was partitioned and chopped into pieces, and then there was a civil war in Turkey, the national war for the Turkish war for independence, on which Mustafa Kemal Atatürk fought against the entire Western coalition and the Ottoman Empire, and he defeated them all. And he drove the Greeks out of Turkey, and there was the burning of Izmir, Smyrna, so on. Long story, but he was able to win. The essence of leadership is service, and the second thing is non-negotiable is winning. A leader must win. A leader must deliver. You cannot be a failure. So he had those qualities, and he was a military leader. And if you are a military leader, you have the might of the armed forces behind you, and all political power flows out of the barrel of a gun, as Mao said. So he was able to eventually become the leader of Turkey, the dictator of Turkey. Uh, and look, he was not a saint. Let me tell you that much. You read his life history, you'll know that he was not a saint, but he was a great leader. So you don't need to have the best personal qualities to be a great leader for your people. Was Ashok a great person, a great human being? Probably not, but he was one of our greatest emperors, and I thank him for his service. Similarly, Mustafa Kemal Atatürk was not a great person, was not a great human being. He had his flaws. Okay, let's put it that way. But he was great for his country, and he had a great vision for his country. You know what he used to say? Uh, he didn't say this, but he despised. You know what's strange about this? It still makes sense. He despised the average Turkish person for their sloth, for their lethargy, for their low standards. But he had an unshakable belief in the greatness of the Turkish nation. You see the contradiction there? He could not stand the average Turkish person, but he had an unshakable belief in the greatness of his Turkish nation, and so on. So that's the thing about Mustafa Kemal Atatürk, one of the all-time greats. And the changes he forced on his country and the society were incredible. It was an Orthodox Muslim nation, and he turned them. He during his lifetime he turned it into a secular nation, a European nation. He forced them to reject the Arabic script and to use the Roman script with certain changes and so on. The changes he brought into to Turkish society were incredible and deep rooted, and I can't imagine how he was able to do it. You know, women could no longer wear the veil, the burqa or whatever it's called. You know that thing, and the public holiday would no longer be on Friday. It would be on Sundays, and he I think he also mandated that Turkish mosques could no longer say Allah Akbar. They had to say Tanri Ullan. And he purged the Turkish language of all the Arabic and Persian loan words by replacing those words with Mongolian words, because the Turkish language is similar to the Mongolian language. They shown you the Huns and the Turks and the Mongols, same origins. So he replaced all the Arabic and Persian loan words with Mongolian loan words, and so on. So the guy, he had this force of character, right? So yeah, one man changed the whole nation. Incredible guy. Okay. I don't know what this name is, but let's read the question. I'm from Germany. Can you explain why there's IQ differences between ethnicities? For example, 110 to 115 for Ashkenazi Jews, 105 to 110 for Han Chinese, 102 to 104 for white or ethnic Europeans, less than 100 for brown people, and less than 90 for blacks. Will you please, if you reply? Look, IQ depends on a lot of factors. Okay, first, so let's do a thought experiment. Let's say there's a kid. Let's say there are twins born in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, disaster zone in Africa. Let's say there are twins born there. Let's say two boys, twin boys. You take one boy, and that boy gets lucky and gets to live in the US in a foster family, and the other kid sadly remains in Congo, and they both grow up. So by the time both are 20, so when both the kids reach 20, they're twins, same genetics, same everything, but one grew up in the US, one grew up in Congo. Then at the age of 20, let's say you do an IQ test. I promise you they're going to show a significant difference in their IQs. Okay? So IQ depends on a lot of factors. Even if you have the same genetics, if the upbringing is significantly different, you're going to have a huge difference in IQ. Your nutrition matters. The kind of nutrition you got and the kind of nutrition your brain got, that affects IQ. The kind of nurture you got as a kid, as during your growing up phase, nature, nurture, that sort of thing, that matters. But yes, I'm sure there is a race component as well. I'm sure there is. Okay? So, and there are people, very intelligent people, who say that IQ is what? A pseudo-scientific swindle. I think Nassim Nicholas Taleb, one of a very intelligent person, he says that. Look, IQ tests, they are designed in a certain way. I've taken an IQ test only once in my life. That was more than more than 20 years ago. And I'm pretty sure that if I take the test again today, I'll have a different score. So a lot of things matter. Let's do another experiment. We have twins once again. Okay, two twins who are born, let's say, in Ireland, and one twin gets to live in the US, one stays in Ireland, one becomes an athlete or tries to be an athlete, the other becomes a sedentary, drunken person. Well, I can assure you that if you take an IQ test of the two twins, the person who is abusing alcohol will have a much lower IQ. The same applies to drugs and whatnot. So a lot of factors affect IQ. Is there really a race thing in it? I'm sure there must be some kind of genetic factor in this. So my question is, when these people take these IQ tests and they determine that this race has this range of IQ, where do they do it? Most IQ tests are in English. And if you are from another country, half the time you may not understand it very well if English is not your first language. Do they have IQ tests in Swahili? Do they have IQ tests in Bantu? Do they have IQ tests in various other African languages? I'm not sure they do. So there's that factor also that may contribute to a lower IQ test. And if you are not mathematically inclined, you may not do well in IQ tests. In IQ tests, you have to recognize patterns, and there is a mathematical component, a logical component to it, and so on. So I don't think IQ is the best measure of a person's ability and intelligence, first of all. So that can explain why there are differences. So people who have gone through a certain kind of education, the Western education system, they'll find it much easier to take an IQ test. They'll find the questions more familiar than someone from Africa who has never been in a school, or someone from Africa who speaks a certain African language, was forced to study in a French medium school, and then has to take an IQ test in English. So you have to understand that there are lots of factors that go into the results of the IQ tests, that can make that can really skew the scores. And there's also a genetic angle to the amount of intelligence a person has. If you take two people, any two people, there's going to be difference in their intelligence level. Some people are just born more intelligent, some people are just born less intelligent. Is there an ethnic thing in it? There could be. Look, I don't know for sure. It's possible. But you know, yeah, it is said that black people have low IQ, and brown people also have some supposedly low IQ. Look at the countries where the black people live today. Okay, when, like you're saying, blacks, less than 94 blacks, these countries are war torn, they're impoverished, they've got abysmal living standards because of what happened in the last 150 200 years colonization, right? They have abysmal living standards. Most of the kids who grow up there are malnourished. They don't get a proper education. And when you grow up in that environment, you're not going to have the best performance in IQ tests. So I think there's a lot of factors like these that skew the results of IQ tests and make it look like some ethnicities, some what do we say? Yeah, some racial groups have higher IQ and some have lower IQ. Let's take why don't we just take IQ tests, do an experiment in which we do the IQ testing for people who live in a very high income nation only. Let's say the US is a good example. It's a very multi-ethnic, multicultural society, mostly white, but many black people, many brown people, Mexicans and Indians, and Chinese people as well, Ashkenazi Jews there. Why don't you do an experiment in which you do IQ tests across, let's say you take 10, let's say you take 10 people from each ethnic group, 10 Ashkenazi Jews, 10 African American people, 10 Native American origin people, 10 Indian Americans, Indian as in Indian, dot, not feather, 10 Chinese Americans, 10 Vietnamese Americans, 10 Mexican Americans, 10 white Americans, and then give them the same IQ test. People who are born and brought up in the US. I think you may see a very different set of results there. So it has, I am pretty sure these IQ tests were not done under uniform circumstances. And yet I am pretty sure there is some kind of genetic component that affects the results of IQ tests. So yeah, that may be a controversial thing to say, but it's possible that certain ethnicities may be on average more intelligent than other ethnicities. It's possible. It is possible. Okay. Yeah. The feminist hunter says, how do you interpret Cleopatra's decision? This is old geopolitics. This is ancient geopolitics, 2000 years ago. How do you interpret Cleopatra's decision to side with Mark Antony against Octavian? Was it a strategic miscalculation or a desperate move to preserve Egypt's sovereignty? Look, most historians will say that Cleopatra made a huge blunder and she was stupid or whatever. But she was, she had two options. Become a complete puppet of the Roman Empire or retain some autonomy. What Octavian was proposing, what Octavian was saying, that you will be the regional governor kind of thing of Egypt, and your succession is not guaranteed. Your children may or may not become kings of Egypt. So Cleopatra had a son, Caesarion. He was a son of Julius Caesar, right? And she wanted her son to be the successor, the next king of Egypt. Octavian would have given her no such choice, would not have given that concession to her. But Mark Antony was willing to give that. So Rome was expanding, and Egypt was this fertile strip of land in the desert, in that part of the world. That part of the world, as you know, is a desert region. But you have the Nile, and Egypt produced a lot of grain, so the Roman army needed that. That's why Egypt was valuable, and that's why the Egyptian crown was valuable. And Mark Antony and Octavian were at loggerheads. There was a civil war kind of situation. There used to be a triumvirate, then they fought. And Mark Antony was willing to give her the assurance that her son would be the next king of Egypt. And that would have given Egypt more sovereignty as opposed to the deal that Octavian was giving. Octavian would have turned Egypt into another Judea. Judea was, I mean, you need to read history to understand the context. But Judea, who was a king, Herod, I think at the time, absolutely under the boots of the Roman Empire. What Mark Antony was proposing, what he was telling her, was that he would give her more prestige, more respect, and more a more greater degree of sovereignty than what Octavian, who would later become Augustus, would give. But the thing is that Mark Antony at this stage, I think his mental balance was not quite right. He was not making good choices, good decisions. A few years ago, he was one of the greatest generals of all. That's why he was so closely associated with Julius Caesar. But Caesar gets assassinated, and his adoptive son, who is his grand nephew, I think, Octavian, he becomes the legal heir of Julius Caesar, and he inherits his legion, the loyalty of his legions, and all that. And then eventually you have the civil war thing, and eventually Mark Antony dies. He has to commit suicide, and Cleopatra, she also takes the route of the asp. Yeah, so look, she made a choice, a strategic choice. It was a gamble. It was a high risk choice. The and at the time it looked like Mark Antony was winning, but eventually Octavian. So you got to make a choice in life somewhere. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, and sometimes in geopolitics, when you lose it all. So that's what happened with Cleopatra. Okay, let's take some questions from the live chat. Shall we? Okay, let me take for the next few minutes questions from the live chat. Okay, Dave Rod says this is the niche question. Why did Naveen Patnaik meet the Pope during his visit to Italy for WFP in 22? Was there some message beyond the pleasantries? I have absolutely no idea. I'm sorry. I don't know. Look, I don't know what people's motivations are, etc. I don't know. Sorry. Let us see. Okay, Shri Ramachandraya Namaha says, what about no first use nuclear policy? Will it be changed? I think we can keep it at no first use. It doesn't mean we will not use it first. We can keep some strategic ambiguity. I think China has a no first use policy. We have a no. Maybe we can revisit that depending on how things go. When it comes to our nuclear policy, the real concern for us is not Pakistan. The real concern is always China, right? So it all depends on the relationship with China, not with Pakistan. Some incident with Pakistan will not make us change our nuclear policy. It's always going to be focused on the bigger threat, which is China. Make says, if you have to take an IQ test, you're doubting your IQ and it exposes your IQ. Sir, I am a very stupid low IQ person. That's why I took a low IQ. That's why I took an IQ test. All right, sir. What can I say? So, or maybe you're curious as to what is my intelligence level on a certain scale. But it's okay. You can believe and you can see the world the way you like. Okay. Let's see some more questions. Shri Ramachandra Namaha again says, Hinduism is about dismantling adharma. That is true. Yes. Okay, now let's see some more questions. Tanay Chandra says, Pakistan new sugar daddy in making, but India is permanent daddy. Okay, sir. Chirag Avasti says, in the worst case scenario, if war were to happen between India and the temporary nation, what would be the red lines for India and for the temporary nation? For the temporary nation, we're talking about nuclear red lines here. For us, you don't use nukes, we'll not use nukes. That's the deal. For them, it's about an existential thing. So if they feel that Pakistan will no longer exist, they may use nukes. So as long as we don't take too much territory, we make shallow gains, and we don't destroy their nuclear installations and all that, or their Rawalpindi headquarters, or the army, the home of the army general, chief of staff, or whatever. That's the red line. So as long as we don't do that, they are okay. Um, okay, Amisha says one of the solutions to Kashmir is to change the demography of Kashmir, settle the Hindu population there, give them protection. Kashmir will change. Do you agree? Look, what have the Chinese done in Tibet? They've changed the demography of Tibet. The native Tibetan people are now a minority in Tibet itself. Lhasa is now the capital of Tibet, is now a Han majority place. Learn from your enemies. One of the solutions is to change the demography. It's your country. You can do whatever you want. People can settle wherever they want. So after the abrogation of Article 370, how many Hindus have moved into Kashmir? Hindus have been going to Kashmir for tourism, to give them tourism revenues. But how many of the Kashmiri Pandits have been allowed to resettle in Kashmir? Nobody has been allowed. But Hindus are okay. Chalo ho gaya. Very good. Let's go Kashmir tourism. This is what happens. So I agree with you. You know what you should do? We should settle people with a military background in Kashmir. There are lots of people who would love to settle in Kashmir. People with a military background, younger people, not people in the 60s and 70s. Settle them in Kashmir, give them arms licenses, and you can do it that way. There are all kinds of good, creative, solid solutions, and what Amisha is proposing is an excellent solution. Yes, it should happen. Why are we being nice forever? First of all, why have the Kashmiri Pandits not been given the freedom to resettle in Kashmir? They're still feeling not safe. No, they're still feeling unsafe. That's why they're not going back, right? They can go back only if they feel that their lives are secure. So the government is not able to do that thus far. Now things need to change. So I agree with Amisha, and she's making a very valid proposal here. Okay. Priyanka Kumari says, why can't we change the education system fast, especially history in high school? Yeah, I don't know why. I, I used to get really frustrated with this, but now I'm like, okay, theek hai, mat karo. It's okay. I would do it. The first thing I would do would be to change the education system. I know it's not easy. It takes time. You have to do it step by step. It's called phased deployment. Phased deployment. You have to deploy any change in phases. It will take you minimum 20 years to change the education system. But you have to start it somewhere. You have to start at the lowest level. You have to start with nursery, first year, then junior KG, then senior KG, then standard 1, and take it all the way for 20 years, change it phase by phase. And you need to have a very clear idea of what change you're making. We can do it. Everything is possible, but maybe it's possible but too difficult. I don't know. Ujjwal says, how can we pause or restrict the petrol access of Pakistan? Look, we don't control petrol access. We control water access. So we're gonna test that. We're gonna control that. Mr. 88 says, recently a team of European scientists observed quantum rain phenomenon. Can you please explain how it's different from normal rain and what breakthroughs can be achieved with this? I have no idea. I've not seen it. I've not seen the piece of news. Quantum rain. I'll have to look it up. I'm not sure. Okay, I haven't seen the news. If I were to guess, what does it mean? I don't know. Does it mean that they've observed raindrops shattering at the quantum level in some way? Raindrops are held together by surface tension. That's why water is usually, globular in nature when it's falling. When it falls, the atmosphere pressure makes it flatter, and then it falls and shatters, and there's a whole complex interplay of various Navier-Stokes equations and equations that surface tension involvement and whatnot. And are you able to observe that at the quantum level? I'm not quite sure. Okay, so I don't know what it is. Once I see it, then I'll be able to comment on that. What do I think about Augustus and his political maneuvers? He was a genius. That's why he became the first emperor of the Roman Empire. He said that I'm going to achieve what they prevented my granduncle from achieving. His granduncle was obviously Julius Caesar, who adopted Octavian as his legal heir, as his adoptive son. So they were related by blood, and Caesar adopted him officially as his adoptive son. That's why Augustus got the political legitimacy. And He was obviously great. Augustus. Octavian became Augustus. All right, all right, all right. What's my height? How does it matter? Okay. Okay, Bobby, good to see Bobby after a long time. Mongol takes back inner East Turkestan. Okay, Mongolia takes back inner Mongolia. East Turkestan separates and Tibet becomes independent. Then there will be peace in that region. You could argue that there is already peace there. There's no war happening there. There's no terrorism happening there. There is peace there. You know, back in the day, I don't remember who it was that said this about the Roman Empire, but someone said that the Romans, they create a wasteland and then they call it peace. It's called pacification. So it depends on your on your definition of peace. You can have peace through strength and by force and by hegemony. You can impose peace by hegemony, by subjugating a conquered population. You can do that. There will be peace in a technical sense, but it will be injustice. So we want peace and justice together. For that, I would say Tibet. Well, yeah, yeah. So I know what you mean. Yes. Okay. What next? We'll take one or two more questions. Surinder Gupta says update on next America Understanding America episode. Yeah, the next one is edited. It's ready. It's coming out this Thursday, and there's another podcast coming out this Tuesday. So you can look forward to it this time. And I apologize for the delay in the Understanding America series, but it's coming back on track now. Okay. Sankalpa says, have you watched Chava? I haven't seen it. Sorry, I haven't seen it thus far. No time to watch movies and things. I would love to. I'd love to watch 2 movies a week in a theater, but no time. Which branch in physics is easiest and vice versa? Look, if you're good at math, every branch of physics is easy. I mean, that's my worldview. It may be different for others. The key to being good at physics is to being really good at math, because math is the language of physics. You want to solve any physics problem, you have to be good at math. So yeah, you got to do all those books. You got to do differential equations. You got to do linear algebra. You got to do topology in some cases. Then you've got to do Fourier transforms and matrices, and yeah, you've got to do all that. So Mary Bose is the way to go, or you can. We've got some more books here and there. It's been a while. So yeah, if you're good at math, you can do any branch of physics is easy. For me, I'm always drawn to the difficult parts, the challenging parts. So okay. Amisha says Indian media is so insensitive. They are making studios of war room so bad. Okay, I have no idea. I don't watch Indian media. This past week, I was requested multiple times to appear on those 9 p.m. Shouting debates. I did not. So yeah, look, war is hot. War sells, right? And in the Indian public, they love shouting, they love debates, they love words. Indians are so fond of arguing and discussing things to the infinite level. So that's why the TV studios, these news studios, they make war rooms, huge maps on the wall, and the anchor will hold a stick and point at the map, and there will be 3 4 army generals, retired guys, who will be saying "Isko kumar degi war" and so on. It's fun if you are into entertainment, but how does it educate the public? I'm not quite sure. Okay. Bobby says Canada has an election coming up. What do you think about each of the candidates? I've not really looked into the candidates. I'm sorry. I don't. Maybe Canada is not that important for me. It makes no difference for me who comes to power. Is there a good candidate out there? Because Pierre Poilievre is there, and Carney, some guy called Carney. Trudeau is gone. I think they're all much of more of the same. They're all like it's like the merry-go-round in the UK. One leader comes and another one goes, and then there's another one after a few months, and it makes no difference whatsoever. None of them are leaders. They're just suits. They're simply suits. I think the same applies to Canada. So I don't really know. maybe I should pay a little bit of attention. Maybe next weekend, I'll do a bit of homework and check out all these candidates, who they are, and maybe I can give you better answer to this question. And with that, I think, okay. Um, does Sir like video games? Um, I don't get to play video games. I once had a PlayStation. I had a PlayStation 2 when it was brand new, hot thing. I bought it for like $450 or something. And I used to play some games. A car crashing game or something, and so on. I've played some video games once in a while, but I don't really get the time to play it. Yeah, so I'm not a big user or connoisseur of video games. Okay, with that, we end today's episode. Thank you so much, everybody, for all the questions. I really enjoyed this. For a change, we have discussed the temporary nation. And yep, thank you so much for your questions. And apologies to those of you whose questions I could not take. And next weekend, we continue this. So until then, take care. Please keep learning, keep asking questions, keep raising your standards. And I will see you next weekend. Thank you so much. Bye bye.